What if better sex didn't start in the bedroom, but actually in the way that you think, communicate, and ask for what you want? That's exactly what Dr. Trina Read teaches. And in this conversation, she's giving us practical, real life tools that you can use right away. I'm Dr. Willow Brown with the wonderful and amazing Leah Piper. We are Sex Reimagined, and we are so thrilled that you're here.
This is a special edition episode with Dr. Trina Read. She was a recent guest on one of our very popular summits. So, what you're going to love about this episode is it's Trina teaching some of the things that she's a total genius about without any interference from us. So, we're really curious how you might like this style of episode. So, please make sure to listen to the whole thing and then give us your feedback. Without further ado, please tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Trina Read.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Trina Read. I'm a sexologist, a bestselling, award-winning author, and I help women in long-term relationships thrive after the honeymoon stage is over. So, I've been doing this for over 25 years. I know I don't look it, and I know it, but I've been doing this for a long, long time. And one of the biggest myths that we see is that women in long-term relationships lose interest in sex. And I would say the opposite is true. That is, sex becomes uninteresting, and so she gets bored. And if this isn't dealt with, she might become apathetic. And let me tell you, there is nothing that stops a good sex life from happening ever is a woman who is apathetic about sex. So what can you do about it? So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to be going through the 5 pleasure secrets of satisfied couples. And at the very end, I'm going to give you 3 ideas that you can use right now, tonight, with your partner or with yourself, wherever you are in your relationship, and try it out. So a misnomer, is that sex stays the same throughout our life. So the sex that we have in our 20s and the sex we have in our 30s and 40s and 60s and 80s is going to be the same. And so a lot of us, we learn a couple things and we go into the bedroom and that's what we do. And sex is actually an evolution. So just as, you are evolving as a person, your relationship is evolving, your sexuality is evolving as well. Yesterday, I did a podcast for this preconception. It was a preconception podcast. And I was thinking about, before I had kids, you're pretty naive about what is going to happen to your intimacy and your sex life after the kids come. It's like it's completely turned around. So we go through these seasons of our life, whether it's we could lose a job or we get divorced or we find a new partner or we go through perimenopause. And so, our bodies and our life and our circumstances are continuously changing. And because of that, we have to evolve our sex life. And so the first thing on my list of the 5 pleasure secrets of satisfied couples is, if you want to have interesting sex, you need to plan it. Now, I understand that plan is a 4-letter word for most couples. They're really intimidated about this idea of sitting outside the bedroom and sitting across from the table and talking about their sex life. But it doesn't have to be, it can be something that's very fun for the two of you. It's just a matter of understanding that something needs to be added into this mix. So, what would the two of you like to do? And if you don't know, and most of us don't, there are, like, if you go and Google, how to have a great sex life, millions of articles will come popping up. There are hundreds of tools that you and your partner can use. And, one of my favorite tools is, it's called the Melba App. It's MELBA.app. And what it is it is an instructional thing. So you and your partner go onto the Melba app, you decide what level of curiosity you're at. And then one partner lays on the bed, the other partner puts earphones in, and Melba gives them step by step instructions on exactly what to do. So, something I've heard over and over again from couples is they want to try new things, they want to do it, they don't know how to talk about it, they don't know what to do. And you're certainly not going to bring a book into the bedroom, or maybe you do, but like, you're like, okay, just hold on. I gotta look at the instructions now. Like, no, you can't do that. So with Melba, if you want to learn how to give a vulva massage, it's there and it's in your ears and you're there and you're giving this vulva massage and you can feel confident that what you're doing is, you know, it's new and exciting. And the thing about planning sex and, understanding that spontaneous sex is probably the reason that you the sex has become boring for you, because a lot of times when couples walk in, they give each other the signal. You know what the signal, I want to have sex, like, and by the way, it drives people crazy when they're just given the signal. So you give your partner the signal and you walk into the bedroom and you haven't planned anything. And so you look at each other and you're like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. So you do the same thing over and over again. And, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. So when you go and you don't rely on spontaneous sex, you say, you know what, this week we're going to try the Melba app, or we're going to try the thousands of things available to you. Suddenly, sex becomes a lot more interesting, and both of you are a lot more interested in it. Uh, so, the second thing on my list is a lot of people assume that if they want to improve their sex life, they need to improve the quantity of their sex life. So, let's say you're having sex once a month and you aren't satisfied with having sex a month, and you assume that having sex 3 times a week is going to, just knock it out of the park. It's going to be suddenly your sex life is going to be great. So they've done research to show, it's not about how often you have sex. It's really about the quality of the sex that you're having. So when you start planning your sex out to say, beforehand, you're like, what are things that we can do ahead of time? You're thinking ahead of time. What can we do? And you bring that quality into the sexual experience. That's what's going to be remembered. That's what's going to keep you close. And, you know, when you're the next day you're looking at each other thinking, hey, let's do that again because that was just so much fun. So, instead of thinking about, how often do we have sex, I want you to start thinking, how well do we have sex? Because, and I'm going to say something that's probably going to completely put a lot of people's panties in twists, and that is, having sex once a year that completely blows your mind and knocks your socks off is so much better than having the same sex 3 times a week, like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So really think about the quality of your sex. So number 3 is, please, 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 for everything that is good in the world, do not wait until sex is initiated to have intimacy. So I find that couples, we're busy. We've got lives. We've got a lot of things going on. Maybe you have kids. You've got things, and we compartmentalize sex, and so it's like, it's like, okay, it's Saturday. We've got, a 20-minute block here. We can fit it in. Let's do that. And that's okay. But for me, I have always said that sex is everything that happens outside of that 20-minute block. So it's really making an effort to prioritize your partnership at least once a day, and it doesn't have to be a lot of effort, but it's creating an emotional bond between the two of you. Dr. Justin Lemire calls it erotic thread. So when you start focusing and prioritizing your partner outside the bedroom, and you're doing something every single day, like let's say and it doesn't have to be anything big. It just can be, you can give them a nice smooch, or give them a compliment, or, you know, send them a fun text, just something to say, I thought of you today and you are my priority. That is going to create an emotional connection. Those, and it, done cumulatively over time, it's creating those erotic threads. Now, here's the thing: the majority of women who are in these long-term relationships experience what's called a delayed sexual response, meaning that she will not feel like having sex in the moment that it's initiated. And in fact, depending on how long you've been together, it's going to take her body, her mind, time to catch up with her body's arousal. So, I can say from my own experience, you go into sex, and like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not there, I'm not there, I'm not there, no, I'm not there. And then, suddenly 15, 20 minutes in, I'm like, hot dog, and I catch up with my arousal. So that's called a delayed sexual response. And every woman in a long-term relationship will experience this. So the thing is, when you start making emotional connections outside the bedroom, you start building those erotic threads, you start having that dialogue where you're flirting with each other, where you're being kind to each other, where you're touching each other, where like you're showing each other that affection. It's filling her up, and that delayed sexual response shrinks significantly. So it's not going to take her as long for her brain to catch up with her body's arousal. So that's, and it's just an important thing, that, like, we just assume that because we partnered with somebody, and, we've made a commitment to them, that they're always going to be there, and nothing is going to change. But it's similar to a potted plant. Like, if you keep this potted plant in a shadowy corner and you never water it, eventually it is going to die. If you don't nurture your relationship and give it some intimacy, give it some attention, give it some emotional connectedness, eventually it will die. And it's so much harder to resurrect a relationship than just do something little every single day to keep that momentum up. Now, number 4 is something I find the majority of couples, including myself, fall down on, and that is, we do not desire our partner enough. So I think one of the reasons that sex is so fun and easy and great at the start of a relationship is you are constantly showing your partner how much you desire them. You're touching them, you're squeezing them, you're telling them how hot they are, how good looking they are. You're so proud to take them out and show your friends. Like, you're showing, you're desiring your partner. And that makes, like, of course you want to have sex with that person because they're desiring you. Now, here's the thing about women in long-term relationships. A big part of her wanting sex is her feeling safe and feeling desired. So, I this is a harsh word. Like, this is one of those things that's tricky to talk about, because women want to be objectified by her long-term partner. So she wants you to see her and desire her. She doesn't want to be objectified by other people. She just wants to be objectified by you. So she wants you to desire her and crave her. And that is going to really help, again, that delayed sexual response. So I would say, when we look at, all the things that we can do outside the bedroom, that one moment every day that you are prioritizing your partner, what are you doing to desire them? And I promise you, like, it just creates this really good couple juju between you. Like, when you start saying, hey babe, you look hot today, or, you know what, I really like those pants on you, like, your butt looks great. I don't know what you want to say to your partner, but it creates such a a good couple dynamic between the two of you. And I think we can all understand why that would make it so much easier to walk into the bedroom. Now, my 5th idea is that great sex can only happen with excellent communication. And I am certain if I ask Lee and Dr. Willow, every single expert that has been on this summit has alluded to or touched on the importance of communication. And I think in theory, we all know how important communicating is, but yet it's still really difficult. And it's astonishing that we can spend 25, 30, 40 years with a person and having sex with our body with that person and never once discuss sex with them. And I get it. It's awkward and it's hard. And, you don't want to, women don't want to start a conflict. And, there's a lot of reasons that we don't communicate as when we should be. But I was, Dr. Jessica O'Reilly, who is from Toronto, she does a really great job in talking about sexual communication. And, she talks about leaning into the awkward. And, like when you first have a conversation with your partner, it's going to be awkward. And that's just what it is. And you just have to get over it. And then, the next conversation that you have becomes less awkward. And so on and so on. And, if you don't have the words, and most of us don't, again, as I said at the start of this, you can go onto Google and pull up, some things that you are thinking about, you want to try. You don't, you can go on, like there's experts. We all have podcasts. We all have YouTube channels. We all have Substacks. You can just go onto our YouTubes and Substacks and just grab some information and send that to your partner or talk to them. But it doesn't have to be an awkward conversation. And in fact, it can be a fun conversation. And I think when you approach it, as we're a team and, we're going to do this together. And, a good exercise, if you want to take this up a step further, is the yes, no, maybe. And maybe somebody else in the summit has covered the yes, no, maybe, but both of you write out lists of the things that you want to say yes to, the things that you're not interested in, and the things that you might be interested in. And when you compare these lists, the yes, no, maybe lists, you're going to find a lot of insight about your partner. And what always kills me is that when partners do this exercise, both of them have something in their yes column that they've wanted to try, that they've always wanted to bring up, that, that they didn't know how and they always felt too shy, but they both wanted to try it. They both wanted to do this, but they never talked to each other about it. So, you might be surprised. I always find that when we partner with somebody, we partner at our sexual level. So if you're thinking, well, I don't think my partner would go for it, you know what? Chances are they would. I'm just going to recap the 5 things that I talked about, and then I'll go into the 3 things that you can do tonight. So the 5 things are: if you want more interesting sex, you need to plan it. And, spontaneous sex is okay once in a while, but really the more thought and effort and time and energy you put into what you're going to be doing before sex happens, the better that this is going to be. And it's just, and if you can get into that good habit, suddenly your sex is so much more interesting than doing the same thing over and over and over again. If you're trying to improve your sex life, chances are it's not about having more sex. It's about having better sex. And again, that goes back to, planning it out. So what can you do during the sexual experience that is really looking at the connection and, having that intimacy time together meaningful and soulful? Because that's, that's where amazing sex lives, in the sensuality. And sensuality only comes when you're really present and focused in the sexual experience. Number 3 is please do not wait for sex to be initiated to create intimacy, to create emotional and erotic threads between the 2 of you. That, this is the most important part of a relationship. You can go for 30, 40 years without having sex with your partner, but you cannot go though at that time without having intimacy. Intimacy is the emotional connection. It's those erotic threads. So what are you doing outside the bedroom to create that? And again, it's when you do, it's going to shorten her delayed sexual response. Number 4 is let your partner know just how much you desire them. And, put it into your day. I bet you if you walked up to your partner right now and gave them a smooch and complimented them, it would completely change the energy in the room just by that small gesture. So really, look at the ways you can desire your partner. And number 5 is great sex can only happen with excellent communication and hopefully taking notes, and you are learning how to communicate and getting some really great ideas. And when you start leaning into that awkwardness, it's going to, you know, suddenly when you start having this conversation with your partner, you're going to be like, why didn't we do this sooner? Because it's not that bad. And we didn't die. And now we're having better sex. So why didn't I do this sooner? Okay, so to wrap this up, I just wanted to give 3 ideas that you can use tonight. So first of all, if you are a female, I want you to think about your favorite scents. And guys can do this too. And I always forget a scent. So let's go through the senses together. Let's see if I get it right this time. So there is hearing and smelling and tasting and touching and seeing. Thank you. So when we talk about planning sex, I want you to think about what is your preferred scent. So maybe when you're planning sex, you want to read some erotica, or you like to listen to some kind of music, or you like the feel of silky lingerie on your body. It's about, taking the time to understand what helps you go from your brain and into your body. And this is just a very gentle way to start planning sex. And you're putting some intention into what would make me feel good in this moment so that I can move into having sex. So what is your preferred sense? Um, the second thing is I want you to think of something that you want out of the sexual experience. And, a lot of people when I say, what do you want out of the sexual experience? Their automatic answer is, I want a bigger, better orgasm. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a bigger, better orgasm, but think outside the orgasm box. Like if you could go onto the Melba app and learn all the things that Melba is teaching, like what you could learn vulva massage, like there's so many things that you can learn to do with your partner. What is something that you would like to try, and how can you communicate that to your partner? And by the way, I think the number one reason that couples in long-term relationships, why millions or maybe billions of couples in long-term relationships do not have the sex that they want and deserve. It's for this one reason of they can't ask for what they want. They have some ideas of what they'd like, but they cannot ask for it. So, like start practicing this asking for what you want. And the thing that kills me is that uh, our partners want to know. They want this information. So a lot of times we hold back, we don't say it, but our partners want to know. So that's why you're on this summit. And that's great. So the third thing that you can do if you're partnered up is to do what I just said. And that is, I want you to like just do an experiment of going up to your partner saying, you know what, you are so hot. I think you are delicious and I find you so attractive and I can't wait to have sex with you. Like just say that and see what happens. Starting a conversation like that is going to completely change how you and your partner start experiencing each other and your sexual experience.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Let's dish it up. What an incredible educator. I love that woman. She's got so much wisdom to share with the world.
Yeah, and she's got her new book out, so be sure to check that out in the show notes. There were so many ahas that jumped out from her class. One of the things that I think is like it should be intuitive, and it's probably things we've heard before, but we don't do it or we don't do it enough. And that is like what we do outside of the bedroom can lead us into the bedroom. And so making sure that you're prioritizing your partner outside of the bedroom, whether that's, giving them a passionate kiss, not just a peck before they leave for work, or it's that sexy text and maybe that naughty picture, or it's like really thinking about their favorite meal and cooking it for them. It's like doing this thing that says, you matter, you're important,
And I'm paying attention to
I'm
you.
paying attention to you. Yeah.
Mostly what we all want, right? We want to be paid attention to. We want to be seen. We want to be met. And there's just so many little things that we can do throughout the day in order to create that within our partnerships. And that is going to make sexy time so much juicier. And the brain is already lit up. It's like your jing chi pot is already boiling, So when it's time to get frisky, your sexuality is already at a good boil.
Well, and here's the thing that you mentioned that I think is really true for a lot of women, especially, is we don't have some women just don't have that spontaneous desire. We're not thinking or feeling sex
Right.
leading into having sex. It's like it's time to be intimate, and then it takes us a transition period to get our head in the game. And so I think one of the things that can be really powerful for people who have a desire that's more responsive in nature is think about the things that turn you on. See if you can't preempt your body into going towards the transition, and especially when put these things on a calendar so you can create the time you need for those transitions. Don't just leave it up to chance. I think is really important.
And that is one of the most important things that couples can do, especially if they've been together for a long time. Because, what she was mentioning around just getting into a spontaneous sexual act, you just kind of give each other the eye, or you say the word, or you send the signal, okay, let's get sexy. And then you haven't had the time to kind of plan in your mind or map it out. What do you want to try different? What do you want to do? And that's why putting it on the calendar makes those spontaneous sessions so much more intriguing, because there's just like you've had more time with those calendared sessions of intimacy to map things out, to think about things, to listen to one of our podcasts, to get inspired. Like, what are you actually gonna do that might be fun or different or playful?
Yeah. I liked her advice about, check in with each other at the beginning of the week. When is our date night going to be, and what are we going to do? So that you have something to look forward to, and then both of you can be accountable for coming up with something creative. It's not fair to always leave it to the one partner to do all the work. Like,
I almost think like partners, like one should plan one time during the month, and the other one should plan one the other time during the month.
yeah.
And the one who's planning, they're planning for the other who's going to receive. It's me.
What did you think about the Melba app idea?
I think it's an interesting idea. I don't love the name though, because I
Reminds me of Melba toast.
have a lady next door named Melba, so it reminds me of a grandma's name. I don't think Xing. I
don't like the name of
the
that.
app itself idea
It's
is
an interesting idea.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you've got someone listening to step-by-step instructions, but I gotta wonder if it just feels clinical.
I want that too, because she is a clinician, right?
Yeah.
Similar to myself. I mean, I can so drop into clinician mode and like put the sexy on the side so easily. I've had to really like train myself out of that when I'm in session with clients who are like, I just want to be aroused.
Me too, but I want to teach you a theory and a
Whole body of wisdom.
but there are these techniques when really the
Yeah.
art of it is actually just being and allowing it to move through you. But there's a place for both. We need techniques, and we have to practice them enough so that they are embodied, so we don't have to think about them because they're just integrated into how we love. Yeah. Well, thank you, Trina. We love you.
So great.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.